Welcome to Oneness and Wellness. I'm here with Marsha Reddington Lawton and Lorraine Goldblum, and we're doing Vortex Healing, and it's really interesting. We've done lots of programs, so you can look back and find us on DedhamTV, and you'll see what's happening. Now we're going to be talking about issues. Tell us a little bit about what is an issue.
What is an issue? An issue is anything that keeps you out of being present in the moment. An issue is something that affects you on an emotional, physical, psychological level that keeps you absorbed, self-absorbed in a particular way. I teach something called Vortex Healing, which is a healing modality. And what healing applies to is our issues, right? When we want healed, that means we have something going on. We have something that's distracting us in our life on a physical level, on an emotional level, on a psychological level. It's taking all of our time and attention, and it's coloring our experience of who we are in the world. So you bring healing to that. And Vortex Healing is a very effective healing modality that addresses issues on every level, because issues express in many, many different ways. So you need something that can address it on a physical, energetic level, and you need something that's going to address issues on a consciousness level as well.
Right, wonderful. Well, because that I think we see I mean, my own experiences and then talking with other people, some people, because of the rapid growth and the frenetic activity that we're faced with in this culture, that they're kind of lost, you know, and as far as looking at themselves and seeing, how do I need to change? What needs to happen with me so that I can live in this world and be the person I want to be?
Right.
So we're talking. Do you want to say something, Marsha?
Well, to support what you're saying, one of the things about issues is they're disempowering. Why do we want to do the work? Because this is how I get in my own way.
Right.
And that doesn't belong to anybody else. It just belongs to the self. Right. So I just want to talk about issues being disempowering. That's why we do the work.
Disempowerment, that's right, exactly.
And they keep us in a very small place, don't they? You know, we have this little experience, I am living in anxiety, or I am living in shame, or I'm living in loneliness, and they cut us off from the support and the friendship and the love that's out there to be had.
And they can be very seriously negative, you know, when it goes way to the other end.
That's why we refer to separation consciousness. They keep us separate.
Right. So now we're talking about heartbreak.
Heartbreak. So
we've all had experiences of heartbreak.
Haven't
we?
And
there's a lot of different ways to look at heartbreak.
Yeah.
So how are we looking at heartbreak
How
today?
are we looking at heartbreak? And, you know, all of the expressions of heartbreak are worth exploring. But how this came up was, I do these things. I have a Facebook page, and periodically I'll offer just spontaneous healings. They're free. If you follow me, you know, I'll just offer a healing. The story actually came from why I started the pop-up healings was that I lost my cat of 19 years. He had a beautiful life, but we had to put him down, and it broke my heart. And I just was telling people, and I got all this love and support, especially from people who've had pets. And so many people, when they started offering their support and comfort, they would start sharing about how they were still processing a particular heartbreak, you know, a loss of a pet perhaps from childhood. And I just said, you know, let's just do a healing for anyone who feels this. I'm just going to do a free healing. I'm going to post it on Facebook. You just tune in at a particular time and go. And it was so popular, and I figured this would be just a nice thing to do periodically. So I did one for the loss of an animal companion. Around the holidays, I did one around loneliness. You know, we had an episode on the issue series here about loneliness and especially how that can kick in around holiday season. And then there was a spot on my calendar in February, and it was the next available date. And I said, ooh, that's right around Valentine's Day. You know, how do I frame, what kind of healing should I offer? And it was my friend Maya, who helps me with my social media thing. She used the word heartbreak. And as soon as she said it, it took me into my own experience of heartbreak. And I went down to my computer and I started just writing, up late at night, glass of wine. Oh, his name was John, I just started writing about how this particular heartbreak experience changed me going forward. It changed my experience of how I was in relationship and how I related to not just romantic relationships, but to the world, how this experience created a guardedness. And I just started doing some healing on it and some exploration. When I posted this healing, it sold out almost instantly. It doesn't sell out because I don't charge people, but it booked out.
Booked out, yep.
So quickly because people really resonated with it. And I'll be doing a live version of that in May because people they all know what it is on some level.
Everyone knows what it is.
Yeah.
And I think in some cases, heartbreak can be paralyzing.
Absolutely.
That
Yeah.
people are not able to move at all because
Yeah.
they're paralyzed by this experience of heartbreak.
Yeah.
Whether it's loss, isolation, losing a loved one,
Yeah.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
it can be so destructive.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I mean, so when you talk about seeing this as a way to move forward, how do we move forward? This is really a big
Yeah.
problem. I mean, I'll pretend, but I'm paralyzed by the loss of my loved one.
Of course.
I loved him for so many years.
Yeah.
So how do I move away from that
Yeah.
being paralyzed?
Well, I think, first you need to sort of understand what is the heartbreak. And in doing this exploration, because it's not just one thing. What I realized about doing my own work on heartbreak is that what happens is there is an overwhelm of emotion. It's loss, it's hurt, it's rejection, it's anger. For whatever reason, you're hit with something that is overwhelming. And in trying to process all of that, the heart, it breaks. It can't handle all of it. Whatever that is, that hurt, that loss, it's just too much, and you end up heartbroken. And then you have a reaction to it, and in terms of sort of a romantic relationship, because that's where this sort of the model began, and then we can sort of take it off into deeper expressions of loss and that. My experience, you can manage that overwhelm by turning it back out. You can blame the other person. You can, just say, they were awful and they did this and they broke my heart, and your best friend is going to tell you, yes, he was a cad, and she's probably right, and he probably was. But it's sort of shifting focus off yourself, which I think is something that's natural to do because it hurts so much. The reflexive response is to shift the focus off of yourself. For my story, I shifted it back in. Instead of blaming, this particular
Right.
person, I blamed myself. And then that colored me going forward. It became a sort of self-worth, and I'm not good enough, and it was my fault, and I just couldn't be what he wanted. It went there. And that colored me. It created a kind of guardedness, because it played on issues that I already had.
Right. It's never just one.
And for my story, there wasn't what's so interesting about it wasn't particularly interesting. I was 18 and I fell in love, and he just didn't love me back. It's not like he did something awful or he cheated on me, or he just didn't. It just wasn't what it was.
Wasn't the right connection.
Whatever it was. And so I wanted to blame him and get mad, but I really couldn't. He didn't do anything wrong except not love me. It actually would have been easier if he had, because then I could have just... Now, no, perhaps he didn't handle it well. We were 18. Who handles things well at 18? But I turned it back in on myself. And it was my first experience of coming to the belief that I had to guard myself and I had to protect myself by portraying an image of someone better. And we sort of talked about this when we were talking about the issue of shame, how I'm going to just be okay and casual about this. And we remained friends. And I wanted to show him, oh, it's not a big deal to me. It's fine. It's good. Because I thought if I could be casual about the breakup and show him that I was easygoing, that he might change his mind and come back. Do you understand the thinking? Does this
Absolutely.
make sense?
That must have been very painful.
It was very painful. Of course, it didn't work
Right,
because I
right.
was kidding myself, and it wasn't.
Right.
But I did this for years, sort of staying in the social, the social circle, and just trying to be someone that he might want to come back to and reevaluate that. And so that takes a lot of energy trying to be someone you're not.
So you didn't let go for a long time.
I didn't let go for a long. I dated other people, but there was always this hope that this one, that it would work out. And of course it never did. So it was years later that I really took that back as an issue. It was Vortex Healing that made me sort of look back at that pattern I had of self-protection and guardedness and a kind of wound, to really bring love to that. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to deal with heartbreak on any level, you need to deal with the self-love.
Right. And I think that's important too, because we're talking on one level,
Right.
but there are several levels to heartbreak.
Right,
And in
right.
fact, I was reading something where the heart actually did break.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there was a fissure in the heart from a terrible experience that this person had.
Yeah.
And so that's possible, you know, that it becomes that physically present
All those
in your
sad
body.
Irish songs, you
Oh.
hear they all just, their heart's broken and they just die. At the end of the song, the main character just dies from a broken heart. It's very real, because our issues don't just sit on an emotional level or a psychological level. All of our
physical.
issues
Yeah.
express throughout the body and the system. That's what makes them so hard to work on, and that's why you need a healing modality that's going to address the consciousness level as well as the physical level and all of that. Because this
Exactly.
stuff is very real.
It's very real. I mean,
Yeah.
we hear about it, you hear about it, you experience it yourself, you hear about
Yeah.
it from friends, you see it on the television, I mean, all of what we have to deal with every day.
Yeah.
So I mean, I think for people to realize that the healing is a multi-process. It's not just one thing. It's not, let me just go to the Reiki and I'll get Reiki and I'll be better.
Right.
No, it's more than
Process.
that.
Right.
Reiki helps, but now what else do you need?
Right.
What else? And that's why Vortex Healing goes to many different areas.
Right,
The
right.
energy, the consciousness, dealing with the issue,
Mm-hmm.
As I said, even being able to say, I am heartbroken. No, I'm experiencing what it is to be heartbroken.
Right. I'm
It's-
experiencing heartbreak.
Yeah, it's different.
It is different. And the fact that you can just phrase it that way says to me that you have some space.
Right.
When the issue, when you identify with it and you say, then there's no space there.
Right.
But to be able to say, I'm experiencing this, and it's awful, but I'm experiencing this, there's room. There's
Right.
space. And that can be very, very hard, because especially with heartbreak, it is overwhelming. And you can't keep up with all of those things. You just can't process it all at once. It's exhausting.
Right.
Can we talk a moment about, we've mentioned dying of a broken heart,
Yeah.
but a broken heart can also break open.
Yes. Yeah. To me, that's the self-love. To me, there can be benefit from exhaustion. Exhaustion can be a spiritual practice. When you just can't do it anymore, when you just can't, you have to surrender into the fact that this just can't happen the way it is. It has to be different going forward, because you can't go on as you are. There's an opportunity for that. And to me, self-love is not just it's not something you do for yourself. It's not just taking action to make yourself feel better. Self-love is really more a state. You know, it's a state of being.
Exactly.
To be in the place where you are whole and in integrity. And that's why we do our work. That's where Vortex Healing brings us.
And it's almost a lifelong journey.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's not something like, bang, you'll be, you know, I'll hypnotize you and you'll be better. No, it's a process. It's learning how to deal with the issue in a positive way and learning how to love yourself.
I remember when my daughter was very young, and it became clear that life was an opportunity, a process where you would learn and learn some more, learn some more. And she looked at me, she's very young, and she said, "Mom, we have to do this work for the rest of our life?" And I said, "Well, do you find yourself sitting at the right hand of God yet?" And she says, "No." And then she's just looking at the journey. It's so arduous. And I said, "Think about it. And please tell me, everything you've worked on and resolved, did that not give you more freedom?"
That's the whole thing.
And that made it okay, because truly every time we do take on an issue and find a higher way of being with it, a more informed perspective,
Right.
that there is more freedom. And that's why we do the dance.
It's beautiful. Absolutely.
That's it. And what do we want? We want to be free, you know? We want to be free from all of those constraints that maybe you were taught as a little kid.
Yeah.
And then you come out of that and you move to the next, and then something else, another issue comes up and you need to deal. So it's a lifelong journey, but it doesn't have to be a drag.
Right.
Exactly my point. And when you have space and you have some freedom around these issues, it's not, if you love openly, you're probably going to get your heart broken. That's just sort of the nature of life and being. So long as we're informed, we're going to have issues to work on. That's part of the process of being in a body and interacting with people. If we love openly, we're going to get hurt. But that's where it's valuable to take a look at this, and this is where our work really shows. Are we going to take that as an opportunity to shut down, or are we going to take that as an opportunity to reopen? So the fact that I have had heartbreak, and that my husband, and I'm happily married, he's had heartbreak too. The fact that we both have been through this process has brought us closer together. I love him more for his experience. He loves me more for my experience, because it's part of who we are now, right? And having the courage to come through that is something we admire in people.
You know, everything you say I agree with. Now, here's the thing. Here's the issue.
Yeah, let's do it. That's what we're doing.
So here's the issue. There are so many people who get stuck.
Yeah.
So they have to get unstuck.
Yeah.
And so I think you're bringing information to them, Vortex Healing, a way to get unstuck. It's a choice that you take that first step.
Yeah.
If you don't take the first step, you're never going to get there.
Yeah. Yeah.
You stay in the dark.
It
If
is.
you want to go to the light, you have to take a step.
Yeah.
So I would just be interested in how do you encourage people to move on?
Well, I think it takes a certain amount of courage to recognize that it really lies with you. The danger of heartbreak is that it's so easy and reflexive to turn it back on the other person, and it's their fault and it's their problem and all of that. Well, they may have stuff going on, but if you're willing and you have the courage and the self-love to turn it back on yourself and say, okay, I'm who I'm living with. I need to find peace in this for myself going forward. Let's take a look at what's really going on here. And that's where you find your Vortex Healing work, and you find your friends who support and love you, and you find whatever tools you bring to the table. That's the first step, is recognizing that the issue is in you.
Great. Information for you, viewing audience.
Oh, okay.
You know that
That's really good.
Yeah.
You know that moment in life, and we all know them multiple times in life. I just don't want to live this way anymore.
Yes.
I don't want to be
That exhaustion.
disempowered.
Yeah,
I don't
exactly.
want this degree of pain. There's got to be a better
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful breakthrough moment if we choose to follow through.
Yeah, and as we've talked about on past episodes, people don't tend to wake up out of contentment. The challenge is where you really meet it. You're saying, I'm going to really take a look at this, and this is hurting me, and I don't want to live like this anymore. What needs to happen? What kind of love can we bring to? That's another thing that Vortex Healing does so very well, is that you can just use the consciousness energetic tools to bring love to an issue, right? Put the judgments down about it. It doesn't make you a bad person because you're having
Exactly.
that. Bring love to that, right? And take that as an opportunity to be willing to open again, be vulnerable again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the thing, especially with when we're talking about the heart, it hurts so much. I will not become vulnerable. I
Right.
will never let another person
Yeah.
come into my life and hurt me like that.
Yeah.
And that's negative. It's not going to bring you what you want. It's
Well,
not.
the irony is that that vulnerability is also your greatest strength. And that's hard. It doesn't make sense on a conceptual level. But, the heart knows that when it's really, truly open and free, the pain won't shut it down. It's just another expression of living. It will know pain, but it will keep moving. It will keep loving, because that's what hearts do.
Wonderful. Beautifully said. Now, I want you to tell our viewing audience how they can contact you, some of the things that you're doing that they might be able to learn about, and learn more about Vortex Healing.
Thank you so much. Well, something I'm very excited about is a workshop that I have at the Omega Institute coming up. It's June 3rd through 7th, and it's called Our Karma and Our Journey, Transforming Universal Issues. And we're doing exactly what we're doing here, only in greater depth and in a context where I can offer healing. We'll talk about an issue, and then I'm going to offer healing on it and sort of talk about that whole process of letting go back into heart. And so I'm very excited about it. You can find that information on my website, LorraineGoldblum.com, or you can look at the Omega Institute website, eomega.org, and register for it there directly.
So that's coming right up in June, and time flies, as everyone knows.
Yeah, yeah.
You're here this month, and then the next month is here before you know it. So,
Yeah, so
that's
true.
great. That's great, Lorraine. So I so appreciate your being with us, and I appreciate Marsha and really the women that have come with us today. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for your help. I learn, just coming in this morning and just listening to the conversation, I learned. And I'm learning all the time, as each and every person has that opportunity to learn. So pay attention and make a choice. Go forward. Don't stay paralyzed. Go forward. Okay. Well, thanks so much again. And thank you, Marsha. Thank you, Lorraine.
Thank you so much. It's really lovely to see you both
it's
again.
It's really perfect. So we'll say to one another,
Namaste. Namaste.